From Hasttel Toys and their official Grapplers and Gimmicks line, this is Bob Cardona. Who? So, this is Bob, which is Matt Cardona's dad. If you're a big fan of, say, the Major Wrestling Figure podcast, or even if you know Zack Snyder's old internet show all the way back when, I think it was called Z Long Island Story, super funny show. It's what really put Zack Ryder on the map. And then, of course, nowadays, Matt Cardona, one of the biggest wrestlers outside of WWE, always a delight to hear from. This is his dad, Bob, who is a huge wrestling fan in his own right. He showed up in the shows a lot. And yeah, I liked him enough to where I was willing to buy a Hasbro-Style figure of him. Just taking a look at the box, I do love this picture of Bob with his hat and just flexing muscles that I don't think he actually has. It's really fun when you look at it. It's obviously a portrait, but for some reason the guns just looked a little bit more photoshopped on him. And then here on the back you have the old blueprints, the design intent, some other figures that Hasttel has done, and the figure credits. All nice and good. I do like the packaging that Hasttel has done as of late, but we're going to open this up, take a look at Bob properly. Taking a look at Bob Cardona, and I really love just how the figure looks. The head sculpt looks just like the guy in the clips I've seen of him, and like I said, this is definitely a funnier kind of figure. He's not a wrestler, he's not necessarily even a wrestling personality. He is a personality connected to a wrestler very lightly through an internet show. But you do have some good points of articulation alongside his looks, so you have a swivel at the head, swivel at the shoulders, and a swivel at the waist. And then, of course, up top you have his glasses and his cowboy hat. Everything looking pretty solid. There's no gimmicks on these figures, just like all of Hastel's figures, but you do still get the general style of the Hasbros and a couple of good points of articulation, so you can get a couple of poses out of the guy. Of course, my favorite figures Hasttel has done so far were their Men on a Mission, so getting them in just to look alongside Bob, they do look really nice together, and just like the Men on a Mission, I think he looks just like the original vintage Hasbro line. That's the thing I'll always give Hasttel, the reason why I like them alongside Zombie Sailor. Whereas Zombie Sailor has their own art style, completely their own, that is unique to them. Hasttel has found a way to perfectly recreate the old Hasbro style of these designs, and I think that's the two separate ends of the spectrum that I enjoy from these companies. So Bob would not necessarily go with your Zombie Sailor toys, but of course he matches great with your Hastels, and he would look really good alongside some vintage Hasbros. Just to prove my point, here is Bob standing alongside IRS and $1 Million Man version 2. Reason I put these two out in particular is because they kind of just mesh with an old man in a cowboy hat. None of these three really look like wrestlers. They all just kind of look like guys. And as a result, I think these are the best vintage figures to really show off the fact that, yeah, he blends in pretty well. This is the point where I would pull in a Matt Cardona just to show how he looks next to him, but I don't have a Matt Cardona. It's one of those cases where I honestly thought I did. I thought I had Zombie Sailor Toys version of Matt Cardona. I don't. And I don't have the Cello Toys version. I don't have any vintage version of either Zack Ryder or Matt Cardona. So I know what I'm going to be looking for next, but unfortunately I can't show that comparison. But at the same time, I guess it's kind of cool to point out that I prioritized Bob over Matt, I guess. Oh, wow. This is a choice I made. Bob was a limited release figure from Hasttel Toys. There's only a few hundred copies of this figure out there, and quite frankly, I think that's for the best. Even though I love having Bob, and I think that he's a really cool, unique figure to add to the collection, and definitely a more diverse character pool, it's just the fact that, at the end of the day, Bob's not a wrestler, he's not a manager, he's not an announcer. He's someone who's from a lot of really funny videos that Zack Ryder used to put out. So at the end of the day, someone like me, I love having him, but I could definitely see this figure maybe sticking around Hastel's website for a little bit. What I will say is that if you like Bob Cardona, if you love anything that Matt Cardona has done in the recent few years, this is a good figure, and I would totally recommend him. At the same time, if you're not really into that deep a cut, the figure's cool, but there's nothing here that makes him game-changing, you know? At the end of the day, he's just a really nice slice of the fandom. allowed to now exist in plastic form, and it's going to be one more cool face I get to add to my Hasttel shelf.